It's very delicious to act with beautiful men.
Having fun with hot men is really tasty. Angie Dickinson had many relationships over the course of her life. Men came and went because she was one of Hollywood's most beautiful women. Some brought happiness, while others only left heartache. There was one guy who stood out from the rest, though. Among all the short-lived relationships and affairs that made the news. Now that Dickinson is 93 years old, and has lived a full life, she can look back and admit the love of her life. Who is this man in the dark? Come with us as we open the blinds. From humble roots. Even before policewoman, before the cameras and famous parts, Angie Dickinson had already sex with some of Hollywood's most powerful men. Frank Sinatra loved her a lot. It was said that she made John F. Kennedy feel good. She wasn't just cast because she was pretty. They also chose her because she could act. You are strong, seductive, and always in charge. People read about the guys in Angie's life, but she made history. She wasn't just someone that guys looked at. People liked and looked up to her. Angie didn't just play a part when she took it on. It was hers. Her big break came when she played Sergeant Pepper Anderson in Policewoman. It wasn't just a big moment for TV. It changed the way people lived. A woman led a prime-time hour-long drama for the first time, and she did it with both power and charm. Angie knew how to run a room as well as the camera. It was impossible to ignore her. Her story didn't start on a red carpet, though. It began in a small town in North Dakota's plains. She was just Angeline Brown before the glitz, the dresses, and the flashing lights of Hollywood cameras. She was from a small town with big dreams and a spark that couldn't be put out. She was born on September 30th, 1931 in Culm, North Dakota, a small town in the prairie. She was the middle girl in a German-American family that worked hard. Frederica and Leo Henry Brown. Her parents had deep roots in the area where they lived. Leo was a well-known newspaper owner, who ran both the Cool Messenger and the Edgeley Mail. He loved writing and telling stories. That effect would last a long time on Angie, who would one day captivate people not with words on paper, but with the strength of her screen personality. From the start, stories were all around her. She was raised as a Roman Catholic in a home where rules and creativity coexisted. Her father was always the Renaissance man in the town. He ran the paper and was the projectionist at the only movie theater in town. As a child, Angie was enthralled by movies. She would sit and watch black and white stories come to life until something terrible happened, and the theater burned down. Even so, the seed was already there. She was no longer just going to the movies for fun. They worked like magic. Angie's life changed a lot in 1942, when she was only 10 years old. The Brown family packed their things and moved from the quiet hills of North Dakota to the sunny suburbs of Southern California. They moved to Burbank, which was only a short distance from Hollywood. For Angie, however, the bright lights of the city were still a long way from her everyday life.
Thus she quickly showed that she wasn't just pretty.
Her high school diploma from Bellarmine Jefferson came when she was 15. I won the 6th annual Bill of Rights essay contest a year ago. Because she had journalistic blood running through her, she was very smart, articulate and driven. At first she wanted to become a writer like her father. After high school she went to Immaculate Heart and Glendale Community College, and got a business degree by 1954. She worked at the Lockheed Air Terminal, which is now Bob Hope Airport, and even in a part shop during that time.
Angie never thought of herself as better than the work she did, even though it was simple.
She was working hard, learning, and taking it all in. Then 1952 came along. It changed her name from Angie Brown to Angie Dickinson, when she married football player Gene Dickinson. The name would stay with them even after they broke up. Dickinson's big break, and fate, as it often does in Hollywood movies, showed up out of the blue. Angie competed in a neighborhood talent show to be Miss America, and came in second, but it was enough for a casting agency to notice. She got a job as one of 6 beautiful showgirls on the Jimmy Durante show, because of that small break. Even in a group of beautiful and talented people, she stood out because of her stunning poise and charm. After that, the dominoes started to fall. A TV director saw something unique about her that went beyond her looks. She had presence.
He told her she should try acting.
Angie thought about what was said, putting in the work with the heart of a student and the soul of an artist. Soon NBC called, and she started going on the Colgate Comedy Hour and other variety shows. She met Frank Sinatra during this time, and quickly became one of her best friends for life.
He was an ally and companion in the crazy world of show business.
Her first role was in an episode of Death Valley Days on New Year's Eve 1954.
It was a small start, but it led to something bigger.
It didn't take long for Angie to become a mainstay of the golden age of TV. She had parts in many shows, including Buffalo Bill Jr., City Detective and General Electric Theater.
She was very versatile.
One minute she was soft and kind, and the next she was angry and unyielding. Her roles in Gunsmoke, The Virginian, and Cheyenne showed that she could handle guns, ride horses, and run a scene like no other. Dickinson was one of the most recognized faces on TV by the late 1950s.
Her first part,
which wasn't credited to her, was in the 1954 movie Lucky Me, which starred the bubbly Doris Day. You'd miss her if you blink. It was the start of something big though. Over the next few years, she started getting more and more small parts.
Right away she made it clear that she didn't want to go the same way Marilyn Monroe or Jane Mansfield did.
She wouldn't turn into another platinum blonde beauty, whose looks were based on stereotypes. Studios tried anyway, lightening her naturally dark brown hair to a soft honey blonde.
This was just the right amount of change to meet the standards of beauty at the time, but not so much that she felt limited.
She planned to make use of her range, not with a bang, but with a slow drawl in a dusty town. She got her big break, the Rio Bravo in 1959.
Rio Bravo,
which was directed by Howard Hawks, was a major movie that made Dickinson a real Hollywood leading lady. It was John Wayne, who played Feathers, the flirty car dealer, who gets the eye of the tough sheriff.
Dickinson was beautiful in the role.
She did well against Dean Martin, Ricky Nelson, and Walter Brennan, who were all big names in the group. She did it with wit, saucy control, and a hint of mischief that made her stand out. From the prairies of North Dakota to the heights of Hollywood fame, Angie Dickinson's life was anything but normal, not just because of how she looked, but also because of how she acted in every age of movies and TV shows. She defied stereotypes, and became an icon, always changing, always in charge, and always memorable. The part that Angie Dickinson played in The Policewoman.
Anne Dickinson had already made a name for herself in Hollywood by the early 1970s.
She was known for her sultry edge, her star power, and her ability to switch between B-movie grit and A-list charm with ease. Even though she didn't want to watch TV, it called to her anyway. Dickinson was in one episode of Police Story in March 1974.
Police Story is a gritty variety show known for showing police work in a realistic way.
She and the show were both big hits. Both viewers and the network reacted right away.
NBC made a deal.
A major part in a spin-off, a weekly show, or her own show. Dickinson fought back at first. At that time, TV, especially for women, was known for making people into stereotypical types.
However, the creators made a strong case. It would be different for this job.
The most important thing is that it would show her to millions of people every week, which is why Dickinson said yes. Dickinson played Sergeant Suzanne Pepper Anderson in the first season of Policewoman, which came out later that same year. Someone who works in the criminal conspiracy unit of the Los Angeles Police Department. She worked secretly, changing into different identities, as she looked into the worst parts of the city. Sergeant Bill Crowley, played by Earl Holliman, was her superior officer. Charles Durkop and Ed Bernard played her fellow investigators. From the start, Dickinson had a firm grip on the screen. She wasn't tough just to show that she could. The Pepper was sharp, calm and caring. A figure who could be in charge without yelling.
The crowd reacted.
It didn't take long for the show to become a surprise hit, not only in the US but elsewhere as well. She was more than just a novelty during a time when female stars in dramas were not common. It was a change. She won a Golden Globe, and was nominated for 3 Emmys in a row for Best Lead Actress in a Drama Series. There were 4 seasons of Policewoman. When it was at its best, Dickinson was one of the most well-known women on TV, but there was a cost to the victory. In an interview in 2019, she talked about the show with a hint of sorrow. The shooting program never stopped. The pay wasn't very good, because she had to work so much. She had to turn down parts in movies that could have helped her career grow in other ways. Also, she was always under pressure to keep up her appearance. She once joked, "Are my legs being used?
That's all I have to sell." Angie Dickinson had some say in the writing.
But she was often put in scenes that relied heavily on her good looks, like taking a call while soaking in a bubble bath. She went along with it, but there was always a tension between what the character was like, and what the business expected of her. Still, Policewoman had an effect that went far beyond its numbers. Police stations all over the country saw a lot more applications from women. A lot of them were motivated by what they saw on TV.
Key praise. Pepper Anderson wasn't just a fake person. She stood for what women could do, and where they could fit in.
Dickinson knew the time in history that she had helped shape. When the Los Angeles Police Department gave her an honors doctorate in 1987, she smiled and took it.
"You can now call me Dr. Pepper."
She played the part again and again, even after the show stopped in 1978, for both fun and nostalgia. She played Pepper Anderson, again on NBC's Ringo Special, with Ringo Starr and John Ritter, in Bob Hope's Christmas specials, and an episode of Saturday Night Live in 1987. She made fun of her own image.
Angie Dickinson's love life is a mess.
She has a famous job and a very private life. Few people in Hollywood can walk this tightrope gracefully.
Angie Dickinson often put her family first, even when the attention could have pulled her in a different way. She married Gene Dickinson, the star of Glendale College's football team, in 1952, before she became famous. They met in college, and fell in love.
But they got divorced in 1959, the same year she got her big break as Feathers, the flirty gambler in Rio Bravo. She became a symbol after that act, and it was the start of her rise in Hollywood. Over the next few years her personal life got almost as much attention as her acting parts. One of the most famous and powerful men in American society was Frank Sinatra, who played her in Ocean's 11, and reportedly President John F. Kennedy was also interested in her.
But when she married the famous composer Burt Bacharach in 1965, that was the bond that would shape her private life the most.
This is the person who wrote hits like Say a Little Prayer, and What the World Needs Now is Love. They were married for 15 years, a period of time that doesn't happen very often in the entertainment business.
Angie Dickinson once said she was crazy about Baccarat. And for a while, the couple managed to handle fame, ambition, and love with amazing grace.
They had their only child, a girl named Nikki, in 1966. Nikki was born 3 months early, and weighed only 1 pound 10 ounces.
It wasn't clear if she would live.
Doctors told her chances were not good. Angie and Bert were proud of their daughter's growth every hour as they watched her grow, giving up a day of stress for an extra ounce. Nikki made it through, but the problems kept coming up. She later had trouble seeing, and was finally told she had Asperger's syndrome. For Dickinson, the event changed everything.
You could choose a career based on more than just scripts and FaceTime. They were about how close they were to home.
She began turning down parts, some of which were big chances, so she could be more present. She turned down the famous role of Hot Lips Houlihan in MASH because she would have had to spend too much time away from her daughter. She insisted on limits, even when she got Policewoman in 1974. Dickinson turned down the chance to work extra hours, so she could be home in time to cook Baccarat and Nikki dinner. They took a rare stand in a field where people work long hours, and personal lines are often crossed. But for Dickinson, home life wasn't something that had to be crammed in between shoots. It was what everything else was built on. Because she chose to put her family first, she had to turn down big-name parts that could have helped her move up in Hollywood. But she didn't seem to feel bad about it. The things she did showed that she knew what fame cost, and chose when and how to pay for it.
In the years before Policewoman made her famous, Angie Dickinson knew one thing for sure.
Her husband became more famous than her, which she didn't want to happen.
In the mid-1970s, when Angie's success was on the rise, Burt Bacharach was having a rough time. He had a rough patch at work, especially when Dionne Warwick, a longtime collaborator, sued him over a contract disagreement. Cracks were also starting to show up at home. Even though she loved Bacharach very much, she once admitted that she was crazy about him. Angie was the one who really gave up a lot. At work she set clear rules. She wouldn't work on the weekends, extra hours, or at night if she could avoid it. She would go home right after work to make dinner for Bert and their daughter Nikki. Earl Holliman, her co-star and friend, once said it straight out, it was hard on Angie. She was trying to keep up a successful TV show and a marriage, and it was clear that it was hard for her. By 1976, only 2 years after Policewoman came out, Angie and Bert were living apart in secret. The couple was still married. They were no longer living together every day, at least not formally. They had a beach house in Del Mar, where Baccarat spent most of his time. Angie stayed with Nikki at their home in Beverly Hills. Angie agreed with her friends that it was a strange situation. She claimed that they were still handling it their own way. She once said that even though we're seeing other people, I still think of Bert as my husband. I love him. I love him so much. That feeling of dedication stuck around. It tried to stop the drift, but it failed. In 1981, after being apart for 5 years, they got a divorce. She partly blamed herself. She said that she worked too many hours, and that she would have quit too if the roles had been switched. Baccarat married the singer-songwriter Carol Bertsager in the end. She told him she wished him well, and knew he needed someone who could relate to him on a deeper level than she could. Even so, their bond never really broke down. Angie kept pictures of him all over the house, and their love for Nikki was what held them together. The same way her father was. Nikki liked music. She liked to learn about science, nature, and the world around her, and she played the drums. She was not at all like her mother in some ways. Nikki once told Angie that they'd never be equally feminine, and that really stuck with her. Nikki had trouble seeing in Asperger's syndrome for a long time, but studying geology at Cal Lutheran University gave her a sense of purpose. She got her degree with the help of her father, but she couldn't work in the field because she had bad eyesight. Nikki killed herself in her Thousand Oaks flat in April 2012. She was 40 years old. The details broke my heart. The person who spoke for Bert later said that she killed herself with gas and a plastic bag because she wanted to be free of the mental and emotional weight she had been carrying for a long time. She killed herself in a quiet and peaceful way to escape the damage that Asperger's was doing to her brain. Nikki loved science, watching glaciers break apart, meteor showers, earthquakes, cats, sunsets, and Tahiti, the statement said. Bert had even written a song for her called Nikki, in 1969, before they really knew how hard things were for her. Her death was a terrible blow to both of her parents. Angie was in pain that would never go away. The death marked the end of a long and hard part of her life, that was shaped by fame, sacrifice, and the quiet, unwavering love of a mother, who never stopped showing up. Angie went through a very sad time in her life, but there were also happy times when she fell deeply in love. Who did Angie Dickinson love? She loved him, but she didn't marry him. Angie Dickinson and Frank Sinatra were deeply in love with each other, and their relationship went on and off for 20 years. Even though they loved each other very much, and had a strong bond, they never got married. Even though their love was very strong, there were still some things that stopped them. Sinatra was married 4 times in his life, and he almost chose a different path with Dickinson. Later, the star of The Policewoman said that she and Sinatra really thought about getting married, but it never happened. Dickinson said there were reasons she couldn't say yes, even though she calls him the love of her life. They met behind the scenes at the Colgate Comedy Hour in 1953, which was the start of their story. Sinatra was with his second wife, Ava Gardner, at the time, while Dickinson was married to her first husband, Gene Dickinson. Still sparks flew. Sinatra asked her if she was dating anyone. He asked her, "Should I take your number anyway?" When she said yes, he got it from her. They got along great on screen. When they worked together in Ocean's 11 in 1960, Dickinson played Danny Ocean's wife, Beatrice. In the same year, she split up with her husband. After that, she and Sinatra stayed linked, sometimes romantically and sometimes as close friends, but their relationship was always hard to describe. Dickinson talked about their friendship in an interview with Studio 10 in 2016. "I loved him more than anyone else. We dated on and off for a long time." They even talked about 1964 as a wedding year. She said that we did talk about it in a later interview with Fox News. "It didn't really matter, because we were already relaxed with each other, but it did come up a few times. I didn't like it. That would not have been something I would have wanted to do. She said that Sinatra's late-night lifestyle was that test. She told Entertainment Weekly that he went to bed at 6 a.m. I loved him so much. He was wonderful. Even though I loved him very much, I would not have wanted to be married to him. However, Sinatra also had some doubts. He told Dickinson, "I'm not going to marry a movie star," at one point. Dickinson laughed at the comedy, because he later married actress Mia Farrow in 1966, and had been married to Ava Gardner before that. Dickinson said, "I don't blame you." In an interview with CBS Sunday Morning, "I wouldn't wish that on anybody." She added, "I actually didn't want to marry him. So I didn't want him to ask me because I didn't want to say no to Frank Sinatra." Despite not marrying, their bond endured until Sinatra's death in 1998. Dickinson went on to marry composer Burt Bacharach in 1965. Today Dickinson remembers Sinatra with great fondness and a smile. "He was the love of my life," she told Fox News. "It feels good to think about him. He was an extraordinary talent, to say the least. When you look at his ability to act and sing, he didn't always take challenges, but I think he could have sung anything." She added with affection, "He was also an extraordinary man. He was difficult, wonderful, brave and foolish." Their love story may not have ended in marriage, but it left a lasting impression. A bittersweet reminder that sometimes the most meaningful relationships are the ones that don't follow the traditional path. The truth about Angie Dickinson and John Wayne's relationship. Angie Dickinson may have been a trailblazer on television, but off-screen, her life was just as captivating, and at times scandalous. Take her on and off again relationship with Sinatra. Among the whispers that followed her Hollywood rise was a persistent rumor that she had a romantic fling with none other than John Wayne. But was it true? Did sparks really fly beyond the set, or was it all smoke and no fire? While some stories fade with time, the connection between Dickinson and Wayne is one that still invites curiosity, in part because of the undeniable chemistry they shared on screen. John Wayne, the rugged icon of westerns, had shared the screen with many strong female leads over the years. But according to the Duke himself, none left quite the impression that Angie Dickinson did. The two first crossed paths in 1958 during the making of I Married a Woman. In this light-hearted comedy, Wayne made a cameo playing himself and Dickinson portrayed his on-screen wife. Though their screen time together was brief, something clicked. Despite the 24-year age gap, they hit it off immediately. What started as a professional collaboration would go on to span multiple films, and allegedly a deeper personal connection. Their second time sharing a set came years later in the 1966 war film Cast a Giant Shadow, but their most memorable and celebrated collaboration, the one that etched their chemistry into cinema history, was Rio Bravo in 1959. Directed by the legendary Howard Hawks, Rio Bravo has grown in stature over the decades, and is now considered one of the greatest westerns ever made. With its gripping mix of action, romance and tension, it showed audiences a different side of John Wayne, one softened by Dickinson's presence. She played Feathers, a bold, witty showgirl, who starts an unlikely romance with Wayne's tough, no-nonsense sheriff. And unlike most of Wayne's earlier films, Rio Bravo dared to give his character a romantic ending. As Walter Brennan's character famously says in the final moments, Sheriff's got himself a girl. It wasn't typical for Wayne. His characters were often too rough, too focused, too closed off for love stories to bloom. But with Dickinson it worked, and that's no coincidence. She brought something out of him that few others could. The affection between them wasn't just in the script, it felt real, natural and deeply believable. For her part, Dickinson never missed an opportunity to praise Wayne, describing him as adorable in later interviews. In a 2011 conversation with Austin Culture Map, she noted how Rio Bravo showed a different side of the famously stoic actor, a softer, more vulnerable side. "I think it's a side of him we didn't see in a lot of his movies." She said it's hard to argue with that. Her performance in Rio Bravo remains one of her finest, and one that helped humanize the larger-than-life cowboy. Still, while her on-screen chemistry was electric, what about off-screen? Hollywood insiders and old fans have long speculated about whether the two shared a romance in real life. The rumors were never confirmed, but they were never quite denied either. It didn't help that Dickinson throughout her career was linked romantically to many high-profile men, Frank Sinatra being one of the most well-known. But John Wayne, that one lingers precisely because of the heat they generated on screen, and the mutual admiration they expressed in interviews. Wayne himself once said, as quoted in Michael Mann's John Wayne, the man behind the myth, "We were damn lucky to have Angie Dickinson. She had beauty and brains." That's high praise coming from a man who worked with some of Hollywood's finest women, including Maureen O'Hara, his most frequent co-star. But Wayne's compliment didn't stop there. "She was one of the best actresses I ever worked with," added, elevating her from mere screen partner to standout collaborator. Dickinson's character Feathers doesn't even appear in Rio Bravo until the second act, but once she does, she steals every scene she's in. Her wit, poise and confidence go toe-to-toe with Wayne's towering screen presence. She doesn't just play the love interest, she matches the sheriff's strength with her own. Interestingly, Rio Bravo has only grown in stature with time. Though well received in 1959, it wasn't until years later that critics and filmmakers began to recognize its true impact. In 2008, the American Film Institute nominated it as one of the top 10 westerns of all time. In 2014, it was added to the Library of Congress's National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Its fingerprints are everywhere, even in modern films. Director John Carpenter famously cited it as a key influence on his 1976 thriller Assault on Precinct 13. And it's not just the story or direction that makes Rio Bravo so enduring. The cast, from Walter Brennan's unforgettable turn as Stumpy to musician actors Dean Martin and Ricky Nelson, all bring something special. But at its heart, it's the interaction between Wayne and Dickinson that gives the film its spark. It's rare to see a western of that era balance grit and romance so elegantly, and rarer still for that romance to feel so alive. As for those rumors, neither Dickinson nor Wayne ever fully addressed them, and perhaps that's part of the magic. In an era where Hollywood's secrets were guarded and legends carefully cultivated, some truths were better left unspoken. What we're left with is the legacy of a film and a pairing that continues to captivate audiences more than 6 decades later. Whether they were lovers off-screen, or simply shared an extraordinary bond on screen, one thing is clear. Angie Dickinson and John Wayne created a cinematic memory that still smolders with possibility. What do you think about Angie Dickinson and Frank Sinatra's relationship? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Remember to like, share and subscribe for more. Also click the following video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.